I sit on the couch, scrolling mindlessly, when my smart home system beeps. Playing last voice command. It announces. Then, Emily's voice, breathy, desperate. A man chuckles. Moans. My stomach drops. I can't wait to feel you again, she whispers. My blood turns ice. The walls close in. Silence. Then darkness. Let me tell you how I got here. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you my marriage was solid. Emily and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. I used to think I was the luckiest guy in the world to call her mine. We met in college, one of those classic love stories where the shy guy falls for the confident, beautiful girl, and somehow, against all odds, she loves him back. At least, that's what I thought. I worked hard to build a life for us, a future. I got a stable job in IT, and Emily worked in marketing. We bought a house together, got a dog, and for years things felt right. Normal. But now, looking back, I can see where the cracks started forming. It was subtle at first. A shift. A feeling. The kind of thing that gnaws at the edges of your mind, but you brush it off because you don't want to believe it's real. Emily started working later than usual. Meetings, project deadlines, client dinners. At first, I didn't question it. She was ambitious, and I respected that. But then, she started coming home different. Colder. Distant. The way she kissed me changed. It used to be effortless, natural. Now, her lips barely lingered on mine, like it was an afterthought. The playful touches, the inside jokes, the random "I love you" texts gone. I told myself she was just tired, stressed. But deep down, I knew better. Then there was the phone. Emily was never the type to be glued to her phone, but suddenly, it was always with her. Always face down on the table. Always on silent. She started taking calls in the other room, laughing at something she wouldn't explain. If I walked in, she'd go quiet, smile at me like nothing happened, and say, "Just work stuff." I wanted to believe her. I really did. One night, I tried to be romantic. I ordered takeout from her favorite restaurant, set up some candles, nothing extravagant, just a small surprise. When she walked in the door, she barely looked at it. "Oh, thanks," she muttered, setting down her bag. I went to hug her. She pulled away. That was the first time I felt it, that deep, sinking dread in my stomach. Sex became rare, then non-existent. At first, she blamed work stress. Then headaches. Then exhaustion. I stopped asking, because every rejection chipped away at me. And yet I kept telling myself, she loves me. She's just going through something. But the excuses started piling up. One weekend she told me she was going on a girls' trip with her coworkers. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But something felt off. I asked if she wanted me to drop her off at the airport. She hesitated. "No, it's fine. I'll just Uber." That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't where she said she was. I thought about calling. Texting. But I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the insecure mess. I forced myself to trust her. And then, there was the smell. A few days after she got back, I went to grab something from her car. The moment I opened the door, I smelled it. Cologne. Not mine. Not any scent I recognized. It was faint, but there. Embedded in the fabric of the seat. My stomach twisted. I confronted her that night, trying to sound casual. "Hey, I noticed a weird cologne smell in your car. Did one of your coworkers borrow it or something?" Her reaction was instant. Too instant. "What? No. That's crazy. You're imagining things." Then she laughed. But it wasn't her usual laugh. It was forced, sharp around the edges. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But doubts are like cracks in glass. They start small, barely noticeable. But once they spread, once they grow, there's no fixing them. The moment that shattered everything was still ahead of me. But the cracks? They were already there. Doubt is a slow poison. It starts as a whisper in the back of your mind, something you can ignore at first. But then it grows louder, stronger, until it's all you can hear. After the Cologne incident, I couldn't stop noticing things. The late nights, the locked phone, the sudden shift in her behavior, it was all adding up to something I didn't want to accept. But I didn't have proof. And without proof, doubt would eat me alive. I told myself I wouldn't snoop. That I was better than that. But doubt makes liars of us all. One night, Emily fell asleep early. I sat beside her in bed, staring at her phone on the nightstand. The screen was dark, face down as always. I reached for it before I could stop myself. My hands were shaking. Wrong passcode. I swallowed hard. She had changed it. She had never hidden her phone from me before. My chest tightened as I placed it back, careful not to make a sound. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Who the hell was she texting? The next day, I got desperate. I started paying attention to things I never had before: her location, her social media, even her gas mileage. And then I noticed something strange. Emily always left for work at 8:30 a.m. sharp. It was routine. But when I checked the logs on our home's smart security system, I saw something odd. The door logs showed that she had left at 7 a.m., a full hour and a half earlier than usual, on multiple days over the past 2 weeks. And she never mentioned it. Not once. I felt sick. I needed to know where she was going. So the next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. I waited until she left, then grabbed my keys and trailed her car from a distance. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. She didn't drive to work. She didn't even drive anywhere near it. Instead, she pulled into a random apartment complex across town. I parked a block away, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I watched as she got out of the car, smoothed her dress, and checked her reflection in the window. She looked excited. Nervous. Like a woman about to meet a lover. My stomach twisted as she walked up to a door and knocked. Seconds later, the door opened. A man answered. Tall, fit, wearing nothing but sweatpants. He smiled as he pulled her inside. And then the door shut. I couldn't breathe. My hands felt numb. I sat there, frozen, watching the door as if staring at it long enough would somehow change what I had just seen. I wanted to storm inside. I wanted to rip that fucking door off its hinges and demand answers. But instead I just sat there, paralyzed. Because once you see something like that, there's no coming back from it. I didn't know how long I stayed there. It could have been minutes, hours. Time felt meaningless. Eventually, I forced myself to drive home, my mind a whirlwind of rage and confusion. That night, I barely spoke to Emily. I couldn't. She acted normal, too normal. She kissed me goodnight like she hadn't just spent her morning in another man's bed. I wanted to scream. But I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. So I waited. I watched. And I let technology do the dirty work for me. Our smart home system had a voice-activated assistant, one that logged every command it received. It recorded short clips whenever someone gave it an instruction. I never paid much attention to it before. But now, I had a reason to. That's when I saw it. A voice recording from 2 nights ago. Logged under Emily's account. My fingers trembled as I clicked play. First rustling. Then, Emily's voice, breathy, hushed. God, I've missed you. My blood ran cold. Then, a man's chuckle. A low, satisfied hum. You should be careful, he murmured. Don't want him to find out. Emily laughed. A soft, intimate sound. A sound that used to be mine. And then, the words that broke me. He's clueless, she whispered. He'll never know. I sat there, shaking, listening to the woman I loved betray me in real time. There was no more doubt. No more excuses. I knew the truth. And soon, so would she. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. The voice recording was still there, sitting in the app like a loaded gun. I had listened to it so many times I could hear her voice even in the silence. He's clueless. He'll never know. I clenched my jaw. Oh, but I do know Emily. She got home late that night. Another late meeting. Another lie. She walked through the door, tossing her bag onto the counter like it was any other night. Like she wasn't fucking another man behind my back. Hey, babe, she said, walking over to kiss me. I didn't move. I just stared at her. She hesitated. You okay? I took a deep breath. My hands were steady, but inside my chest burned with rage. Yeah, I said. Actually, I wanted to show you something. Her eyebrows furrowed, but she nodded. I picked up my phone, tapped the screen, and hit play. Her voice filled the kitchen. God, I've missed you. She froze. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. I let it play. Every whisper, every moan, every disgusting lie. When it ended, silence crashed down between us. Her mouth opened, then closed. Panic. She was calculating, trying to find an escape. I didn't give her one. Say something, I demanded, my voice cold. Her lips trembled. I don't know what that is. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Really? Because it sure as hell sounds like you. She swallowed hard. It's not what it sounds like. Don't. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. Don't insult me, Emily. I followed you. I saw you go into his apartment. I fucking know. Her eyes darted everywhere, fight or flight. It didn't mean anything, she blurted out. It was a mistake. I leaned back, crossing my arms. A mistake? You sure sounded pretty into it for a mistake. She flinched. Tears welled in her eyes. Fake. Crocodile tears. Please, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. I shook my head, disgust curling in my stomach. You didn't just hurt me, Emily. You humiliated me. She reached for my hand, but I yanked it away. The touch that once felt like home now made my skin crawl. How long? I asked, my voice dead. Her breath hitched. It doesn't matter. How long? A beat of silence. Then, her shoulders slumped. 6 months. I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. 6 months. Jesus Christ. She wiped at her eyes. I was lonely, okay? You've been so distant, always stressed with work. I felt like we weren't connecting anymore. I stared at her in disbelief. Are you fucking serious? You're blaming me? No. She exhaled sharply. I made a mistake. But it was never serious. He doesn't mean anything to me. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my anger from boiling over. If he didn't mean anything, why did you keep going back? Silence. I scoffed. That's what I thought. She tried again. I love you. I felt those words like a slap. I used to live for them. Now they felt like poison. No, you don't, I said. You don't cheat on people you love. Her face crumbled. I'll fix this. I'll block him. We can go to therapy. Please, I don't want to lose you. I shook my head slowly. You already lost me. Her breath caught. So, what now? I exhaled, my chest heavy. Now I decide if I ever want to see your face again. She sobbed, collapsing into a chair, but I couldn't bring myself to care. She made her choice. And now, I'd make mine. The first night after the confrontation, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, our bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. Emily was downstairs, crying, but I didn't care. Not anymore. My mind replayed everything on a loop. The voice recording. The way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't watching. The pathetic excuses she tried to feed me. I felt hollow. Numb. Morning came, and I still hadn't moved. The bed felt too big, too empty. But it had been empty for a while, hadn't it? I just hadn't wanted to see it. Emily tried to talk to me when I finally got up. Her eyes were swollen, her voice small. Can we please just talk? I walked right past her. The next few days blurred together. I went through the motions, work, eating, pretending I was okay. But inside I was ruined. My thoughts were poison. Every time I closed my eyes I saw her with him. Heard her moaning his name. My wife. My fucking wife. I started questioning everything. Had she ever really loved me? Was our whole marriage just a lie? Had she been laughing behind my back this entire time? The doubt consumed me. I found myself scrolling through our old pictures, searching for signs I missed. Every smiling photo felt fake now. Every "I love you" text felt like a joke. I checked our wedding vows, rereading the words she swore to me. Loyalty. Forever. Always. Bullshit. One night, I caught myself gripping my phone, hovering over her messages. I wanted to scream at her. To ask her if she ever thought about me while she was in his bed. If she ever regretted it. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I didn't want her answers. Nothing she said could undo what she did. I started drinking more. Not enough to lose control, but enough to take the edge off. My friends noticed, asked if I was okay. I lied, said I was fine. I wasn't. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not yet. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because saying it out loud would make it real. And I wasn't ready for that. One evening, Emily tried again. Please, let's talk. I finally looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years I felt nothing. No love. No longing. Just emptiness. I don't think I can ever forgive you. Her face crumpled. But I love you. I laughed. A bitter, lifeless sound. No, Emily. You love yourself? If you loved me, we wouldn't be here. And with that I walked away. Because I finally understood, the woman I loved was gone. A week passed. Then another. The house felt different, colder, emptier. Maybe because I had finally stopped pretending. I wasn't angry anymore, or maybe I was, but it had turned into something else, something colder. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a loss. A loss I couldn't get back. Emily tried to hold on. She begged, pleaded, promised to fix things. We can go to therapy, she said. We can rebuild. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't listen to her anymore. Because deep down I knew. There was no we anymore. I had spent too many nights staring at the ceiling, feeling nothing but anger and regret. But the worst part? I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her, the woman I thought she was. But not the one who had lied, who had betrayed everything I stood for. The silence in the house was suffocating, but it was nothing compared to the silence in my heart. The woman I thought I knew, my wife, wasn't real. I was living with a stranger. The thought of continuing to live like that was unbearable. So I made my decision. I had never been a man of impulsive choices. I had always weighed my options, analyzed, calculated. But this was simple. One evening, after another long day of her trying to make up for what she had done, I came home and found her sitting on the couch, clutching a tissue, her eyes red. Waiting. Hoping. She always hoped. Always believed there was a way back to normal. I sat across from her. I want a divorce. Her eyes widened in disbelief, as if the words didn't register. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her hands trembled as she clutched the tissue. No. Please, she begged, voice breaking. We can work through this. I shook my head, my voice firm. I don't want to work through it. The words came out cold, like I had said them 1,000 times before. I've made my decision. Her face crumpled. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at her, no emotion in my face. Then you shouldn't have. There was a long pause. She stared at me, as if waiting for a different answer, as if I might change my mind. But I couldn't. There was no coming back from this. No fixing it. The room fell silent, the weight of everything hanging heavy in the air. I couldn't pretend anymore. It's over. The words were quiet, but final. Her tears came then, the sobs breaking the silence between us. I love you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. Please don't do this. I felt nothing. For the first time, I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized how much she had changed. The woman I once knew had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. The woman I loved, she was gone. You love yourself, Emily. Not me. I stood up and walked to the door, ready to leave the conversation behind me. I can't fix this, I said, my voice distant. And then I left. I didn't look back. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. There was no drama, no big fight. She cried when I handed her the divorce papers, but there was a strange sense of relief that came over me. She wanted to keep fighting, but I was done. She could fight with herself. I had nothing left to give her. She moved out soon after. I didn't help her pack. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't care. I spent the next few weeks with the house to myself. It felt quieter, emptier, but it wasn't bad. Not anymore. It was just mine. My space. And when she finally left, I stood in the empty house and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Because in the end, I was finally free. It's been months since Emily left. The house feels quieter now, emptier, but not in a bad way. In a way that makes me realize just how much space I had been filling with her lies, her manipulations, the weight of the relationship. It's funny how silence can be so heavy and so freeing all at once. At first, I didn't know how to deal with it. I kept thinking about her, replaying the lies, the moments I should have noticed. But slowly, the obsession faded. I stopped waking up angry. I stopped needing answers. And I started to see the truth. The truth is, she never loved me the way I thought she did. The truth is, I spent too much of my life trying to fix someone who wasn't broken, trying to love someone who had already checked out. And in the end, it wasn't her affair that broke me. It was the realization that I had been fooling myself all along. I learned a lot through all this. Mostly about how much I was willing to sacrifice for someone else's happiness, how much I was willing to ignore in order to keep the peace. But I don't regret it. I don't regret the love I gave, even if it wasn't returned the way I expected. It taught me resilience. It taught me to trust myself. I've come to terms with the fact that sometimes people change, and they don't always grow in the same direction. Emily wasn't the person I thought she was, and I wasn't the man I thought I could be with her. But that's okay. I don't need her in my life anymore. I don't need her lies. I don't need to carry that weight. I've learned to move forward on my own terms. I'm learning how to be content with my own company, and it's more fulfilling than I ever imagined. To anyone reading this who feels stuck, you don't need to stay where you're hurt. You can walk away. You can rebuild. It's hard, but it's worth it. And maybe, just maybe, being alone for a while is exactly what I needed to find the person I was always meant to be. I'm okay now. And that's enough. Leave a comment with your thoughts on the story. And subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. See you soon.